Okay, today on the video I'm about to share with you and content I'm going to share with you here, I'm going to talk about Target CPA. And dynamic search ads, and how kind of those are, I feel like they're related, at least to some degree, which I'm going to explain how they're related. How actually though, the bigger thing is how those things together as well as separately can kill your lead quality or basically just the ROI from your campaigns that you have coming in. If you're an e-commerce company, you sell something more than $100, as you probably know. A lot of people call or they fill out the contact form or they chat asking questions before they buy because they want to know. And the more the product costs, the more likely they are to do that. So there's a pipeline, if you will, or two-step process, just like you were generating leads for a plumbing service that you have to go through in order to make money. And so unless you're basically selling a $20 broom, this applies to everybody. Anybody who's using Google ads and trying to use Target CPA or dynamic search ads, your campaigns aren't going to be nearly as profitable using these two things due to the nature of just how these things work. And also I'll explain why that it is, specifically why you most likely want to stay away from them, even though I'm not want to say anybody could get results with it. I'm just saying there's a better option that I always go with. If you want better results, who doesn't? Then, basically you got options at the end of this video walking away that you can go out and use right now. I tell you specifically, if you're using it right now, how to immediately get more results. And then in general, if you're just considering it or contemplating it when you found this video, well, now you'll know, hey, there's better options, okay? So that all said, I'll go ahead and get started. I get it. Nobody wants to spend hours setting up ads or paying someone big money to do it, like a firm like that we have here. I get the prevailing sentiment that when you hire somebody to like manage your ad account, people think, oh, well, why should I give some of my money to them? They're just, I do all the hard work and they're just, sitting on their asses, basically. Which is one way to think about it. There's nobody says that you have to hire somebody else to do it, but at a certain point, you realize that you can't scale the company anymore unless you hire it out. So I always say, if you don't have much money, you have time, use my strategies of my videos to do it yourself until you've made $1 million a year in sales, or at least $500,000 a year in sales, and then hand it off to the agency, and they'll go nuts with it, assuming you have the right agency. That said, so in regards to the topic at hand about dynamic search ads and Target CPA, you don't want to pay somebody, therefore you'll try to do it yourself. Now, when you do it yourself, people try to take shortcuts, and going a step back, further back here, 90% of people who try the Google ads are never going to make money. Either they don't know they're not making money, either they don't know they're not making money, don't know they're not making money because they don't have good tracking set up and they don't know what they're supposed to be paying for a conversion. Therefore, they're running their ads blissfully ignorant that it's not making any money, or they're just straight up it's not making money. Why? Because they take shortcuts starting out and they think, oh, Google says through their wizard here that I can set up a campaign in 10 minutes. If it were only that easy, your competitor would be doing it already, okay? So eventually people figure this out, and then the ones that go on to actually make money, the rest of people just give up and say Google ads doesn't work. But one of the things that they'll do when they set these up, they'll rely on dynamic search ads and Target CPA because it takes less work. There's more done for you by means of Google's system itself. And what I'm telling you right now is, while anything that's going to be, this is true with life in general, right? Anything that's easy and automated is going to be less good as doing it yourself. The question is it going to be good enough to still get by? And for a lot of people, the answer is no, okay? Relying on these two things, Target CPA and dynamic search ads, the fact that you're using them, it's not going to be worth the time saved, basically, using these as to what you think you would. And there's a base, level of how efficiency with your ads. Otherwise, it's just going to make no money. So people underestimate. They think they put a little bit of effort in. Yeah, it'll make a little. It won't make a lot. I'm not that ambitious. The reality is, if you don't put in a decent amount of work, it'll just never be profitable after you pay for your expenses, your ads, your products, your service delivery, whatever. So, and that's actually going to be true, again, for anybody who sells a moderately expensive product even, or service in general. If you're selling a $20 broom, like I said, people usually they buy that right away or they don't buy it at all. And in that case, they don't have questions normally. Therefore, this can be fine for you, because basically if somebody, more so with the Target CPA here, if somebody, which you wouldn't have Target CPA, you would have Target ROAS would be more important there. But like on a cheap product and a campaign that's somewhat automated it can work. Why? Because the algorithm knows that basically either they buy or they don't buy right away, and you can just set up the system to have the campaigns work for you to get and just go for that one goal. Target ROAS is what I would recommend there, and smart shopping campaigns, but just if you're in this other category of selling cheap products. And the system does a pretty good job with that. Where Google struggles to help people with, that are advertising, and which, by the way, they have to struggle because they can't let everybody make money. Their goal is to make the cream rise to the top. The people who have spent the most work catering to their users by having the better sales funnel that's more catered to what people want to see gets most of the traffic, and everybody else loses. So, and then new people come in. They either are at the top 20% in terms of how well they set their stuff up, or they basically get kicked to the side, and that process just kind of never ends. So anyway, there's situations where more automation definitely can be more productive for you. And the reason why on a more expensive item or where you're generating leads, it's not as good, there's actually several reasons now why you don't want to do it, basically, okay? And you want to probably, even right away, or definitely if you don't do it now, strongly consider it, using more manual approach. So the dynamic search ads, which again, if you don't know those, it's where Google scans your website and they try to come up with its own ad and pointing it to the page on your site that has products listed there or a service page listed there. And it tries to find the right keyword to advertise on. So it's pretty much as close to fully automated as possible, okay? So you tell it, basically, that you want to generate leads. Do what you can to generate as many leads as possible. Well, okay, what's going to happen is I'll give you a few examples of what is going to burn your money up when you do this. One of which, the big one is, let's say you're a plumber, okay? What happens when you get customers? They call in for status updates, right? Well, they do that with your competitors. And then what happens? People type in XYZ or Joe Schmo Plumbing, which is your competitor. Your ad shows up now. They end up calling. Because you have call tracking set up, Google thinks that's a win. So then the next time someone searches for Joe Schmo Plumbing, it's like, wow, it really worked last time. Let's show it again. And then you get this self-perpetuating feedback loop that kind of understands that, because even if you're running dynamic search ads, just all by itself, it monitors, and you have even no goal tracking. It's going to monitor whether somebody goes back to Google and clicks on something else to see if that person should have seen that ad for that type of person. And when it gets positive feedback, it tries to show more people with those traits on it. It doesn't just look at the keyword, but what was that person's behavior before? What's that person's income level? What's that person's gender? So on and so forth. So you get a bunch of people looking for a competitor. Obviously, in some cases that might work, but in most of the cases, they're looking for, a competitor by name or an exact product of your competitors. And what happens is that you think, well, if maybe they were just checking me out. No, most of those people that then click on your ads, are going to be people that accidentally click it, because what happens is people don't recognize this. They don't read the ads half of the time. They're like it's almost like, here's a good analogy. You know, when you're driving, you don't think about when you're driving, right? You can drive on autopilot. You don't even have to, you're not even thinking about, you're thinking about the weekend or whatever, but you're driving, right? This is how people use Google. They type in and they're thinking about 12 of the things after they've typed that thing in, but that look at, the competitor, where they type the competitor's name in. And then when they already know how to use Google and it's all in autopilot, this is evolutionary behavior here. So the brain uses less energy and therefore less calories, therefore is more efficient when food was scarce. And so then they just click on the first ad, assuming that that's a competitor now, okay? So bang, every time that happens, you just lost money. And there's a lot of people searching for competitor product names, legal names, trade names, all that stuff. There's a way to make the competitor, the ad space under a competitor name work, but generally speaking, 90% of the time, you got to have a dedicated strategy for that, and that means you have an ad that says, considering Joe Schmo Plumbing, they suck. Here's why, and then you send them to a page telling them here's why, or some like a deliberate version of that, or a variation of that, I should say, a deliberate attempt to actually help the user, because I mean, put yourself in their user's shoes. If you're going to go look for the competitors and an order update, you're pissed off at them, then they're not looking for you. They don't give a crap about you. You're just getting in the way if you're being there. It's just the equivalent of like trying to go shopping in the mall and there's some douchebag that's handing out flyers and you don't want you didn't ask them to be there, you don't want them to be there, and you try to avoid. And that's like the equivalent of you being there under a competitor search when they're making that search. However, if that same person was standing outside the Prada store and they said, here's what Prada's doing in Indonesia with their manufacturing. And it's like, you're actually helping the user at that point. If you could help the user, or it could be, you're looking for this machine from this competitor. We have the equivalent machine here that's better and it's a little cheaper. Would you like to check it out? That's what these people that stand out in front of the store should be doing. Like, they should be representing Gucci, standing in front of the Prada store and explaining why Gucci's better, that kind of thing. So that's an analogy for you. So anyway, moving on, there's other things though that the competitor one is the bigger one, or a big one. I don't know if it's the biggest, but it's probably the biggest. Dynamic search ads will also get people that reeled into your sales funnel and to you for people looking for local solutions. So they'll look for like local designer shoes. They need the shoes for the wedding this weekend. They're not going to buy from your site. So every single time someone types that in, Google, you would hope that Google would to know better, but they don't. It's not that smart of a system yet. Maybe eventually it will. I don't know, but they're not set. They're not set. I mean, with them saying, "Give me your checkbook, I'll get you the customers," they're not technically incentivized to actually help you in that way. Don't attack me, Google. Let's just make your own decision about this. And so every time someone types in and looking for a local person, you wasted your money again. It's death by 1,000 paper cuts, which is PPC in general. Your customers are there, but it's just a small segment of all the traffic there. And you've got to be able to weed it all out. And if you weed it down far enough, you got money. You don't, you're blowing money. The other thing is, another example here, is it could be people who are looking to get answers to questions. So I used to work at a Radio Shack when I was like 16 years old. And the owner of that Radio Shack franchise would say he would get so pissed off. People would come in to the store, and I lived in a small town in Iowa, where I grew up. I live in Phoenix now. But they would come in and they would ask questions about like a car stereo, and then they would leave and then they would like go to Walmart and buy that car stereo there after they've gotten the technical information from you. So, you know, and obviously this happens in e-commerce. They can call you and then they could go to Amazon, right? And the owner would get so pissed because he would help them, and then they would go to Walmart to get it 10% cheaper or a cheaper version or whatever. And knowing that they were going to come in, and their intention the whole time it was to do that. Well, somebody, I mean, that's one way to get another cut underneath your skin to bleed you out, that where they're looking to get information from you under a certain instance where they don't ever buy from you because you're too expensive and they go to somebody else. But the bigger one is they're just looking for information, like they're looking for a shipping consultant to help lower your costs on shipping. And they type in a term like, do I need a shipping consultant, right? Even though your ad says, shipping consultant, hire me now. If you don't want to hire me, get lost. Which, by the way, nobody reads the ad as much as you think you do. So if you are hoping that they read the ad and self-select and weed themselves out, it's not going to happen. Or at least enough at a rate high enough to not be at a negative ROI. But what happens is they'll say, shipping consultant, huh? I'll just go ahead and click on their ad and see what information's on this page. Maybe they're not most of the time they're not intending to piss your time away here. But then they click on your ad and then they say, talk to a shipping consultant expert. You know, free consultation, or it maybe even says that. Then they call you, they waste 15 minutes of your time, and they had no intention of buying whatsoever. Ever gonna buy. Or maybe they're gonna buy, but only 5% of those people who search for that will buy later on. The rest, it was a fleeting idea and then they got distracted and then they did something else. So Google is going to have you show up for that. You got to be able to weed your traffic down, and you got to be able to get it so narrowed down in terms of when the ad should show versus when it should not show, that basically if they click on your ad, even if they read nothing else and they called, you'd still make money. That's where you want to be at. That's your goal. What should be your goal with running ads on Google in the first place? And you can do that by being very selective about what keywords to use and or an audience that you're maybe perhaps targeting or whatever. It could be any PPC could take on this general concept, but with search advertising, narrowing it down far enough, the keywords, narrowing it far enough down to where it will work, because you've gotten it down, you've weeded enough of the tire kickers out, the people that are at the top of the funnel that are just like kind of at the informational stage, or they are at the informational stage, but you know enough about that particular user who searches for that keyword that it does go on to a mature buyer at a high enough rate, because sometimes you'll do that because the cost per click to get them higher up in the funnel is so much cheaper. Might be $1 versus $30 for somebody ready to buy, that the math works. But you got to figure that out, and it takes running your ads to figure that out, and you got to be able to look at each keyword individually over time and then weed the keywords out that don't work, or at the least, which is more appropriate, you downgrade the bids to what that keyword's mathematically worth based upon its historical performance on how many of the leads go on to a sale and how much the sales have been worth, and plugging that revenue data back into your account so you can see on a keyword by keyword basis what each keyword's actually worth to your business. So anyway, got a little bit off track, but those are the main things there with the dynamic search ads that are going to kill you if you're not selling at the $20 brim I talked about, okay? Now, you have, on top of this, I haven't talked about Target CPA yet, but if you run dynamic search ads and then you go ahead and you run Target CPA on top of that, Target CPA takes this whole thing that I just talked about to a whole new level. So they run the random ad, they get the person looking for a status update from somebody else. Google says, oh great, I found somebody who clicks on the ad and converts at a high rate and very cheap, for a very low cost. Let's send more. And then they do it again and they send more, and pretty soon your entire budget's going to the crap that nobody wants, which is bidding on the competitor's terms or whatever, and you get nothing but the crappy traffic. So you're actively getting worse the longer you advertise versus getting better. Okay? So this combination is very, very, very hard to get working. Okay? Now you know why and how you should, stay away from it. Well, I should say why you should stay away from this. How to stay away from this. Or let's just say this is you're running dynamic search ads with or without the Target CPA. What do you do to take what you have right now and immediately make it work? Let's just say amazingly well, because the longer you've been running it, the better this will work. But respectively, if you've been running, you spent a few $1,000s on ads already, you're about ready to give up, stop what you have, do what I'm about to tell you right here. You should be able to start making money right away. Okay, what is that system? So that said, if you're doing it, the dynamic search ads now, here, or with or without the Target CPA, here's an easy fix to immediately start making money from what you could think of what you did, not only just as a lesson, but you paid the price to get the ammo it took to actually do it the right way. Because we're going to dig through what we have, we're going to reuse it, rebuild it, and then make money from it. First step, look at your search terms report, which search terms report is going to tell you exactly what people typed in before they clicked on your dynamic search ad. And you're going to sort them by descending by number of conversions. So I'll assume you have conversion tracking set up. If you don't, then skip that part. So you're going to find all the search terms that delivered the most conversions. Okay? Basically, I would just take anything that gotten at least a 1 conversion and then export them, either manually or through the export button. Okay? 2, run a test campaign to see which of those terms that converted in the past are eligible to run. One of the things that is with Google Ads that irritates people, we'll just say that, is you can't just advertise on any keyword you want. If it doesn't have such and such amount of search volume, like at least consistently gets some searches every month, at least 1 search a month, we'll just say, then Google will say, when you try to bid on it, it'll have a warning and it'll say, low search volume cannot run, or like some variation of that. I can't remember what the actual saying is, but it's in red. And then, so what people will do is they'll say, well, I don't know what keywords will run, so I'll just run a few of the most, the bigger, most common terms. Whereas if you do that, now you don't have any, an arbitrage opportunity to bid on terms that are called, people have coined it long tail keywords, basically more longer phrases that are way more profitable. Yes, they have less search volume, but they're a lot more profitable, and you should start to try to go after those first at the very least if you can, because they have a higher ROI potential and it'd be quicker to make money, and then from there you can put it into the more mainstream terms that maybe take a while longer to get working by weeding out the demographics of those people who search for those terms that work versus don't work, like gender and what state they're from and so on and so forth. So, but this is my technique. I invented it, we'll just say. You go and you create a test campaign, and then you run all the keywords that convert from step 1, and then right away in 15 minutes it'll tell you which ones are eligible to be bid on and which ones won't. You would think that they would all be eligible, but they won't be. And this will help you save time for these later steps by weeding out all the ones that you know now that Google isn't going to let you bid on. Okay. 3, weed out all non-buying terms, and terms without lower purchase intent. So to keep you gotta the saying, you gotta walk before you can run. You gotta make money from your PPC starting out before you're gonna be able to really do a lot of sales for PPC, and you need to be able to take money from what you're making up front to finance a huge account. So what I recommend doing out of that list, and once you know which ones you can actually bid on, is to take out, if they're not looking to buy like right now as per just looking at that term, buy red shoes for sale, cheap red shoes. Stick with those instead of just red shoes, because those are the ones that are more statistically likely to generate a customer, okay? And So it'll be an easy way for you to have some quick, easy money starting out, and then you can go after the more general terms. You know, if you're having a service, it's all people that type in. Let's say you have sales training company. I'm going to go after sales training company, same sales training service, sales training firm, sales training agency. Those are the buying terms I would go after, at least to start. Give yourself as much of a chance to make this work as possible. You should, by the way, know what you need to pay per lead by calculating your close rates and your average deal sizes, so that when you do this again, you won't have to panic halfway through. You should know that if I get a $30 cost per conversion, I know I should be able to make money. Set up your tracking, you get into it. At least if you're not there yet, you at least know if it's getting closer. It's just a matter of time. You're going to be able to make you're going to make it work. And not only that, you're going to be able to scale. Eventually, you're going to make a ton of money. So I'd do the buying terms, and then you can actually go after some other terms other than like what I mentioned, those buying terms, but stick with the lower funnel, or remove the ones with lower purchase intent. So the how to, where do I, well, where do I is not a really good example. Just anybody looking for information about what you do, just weed all that crap out. If for a service, it could be prices, cost. Those would be ones right directly above what I would call the buying terms, where they're looking to buy right now, that usually also work pretty well. So if you wanted to go one step further and be a little bit more aggressive starting out, go after those as well, okay? Anyway, you get the idea. 4, you're going to add negative keywords. So out of that search terms list, okay, you're going to look through it and you're going to find all the terms that you should be using to block in the future any ads from showing up, okay? They call it negative keywords. And so basically, you just go through there and you're going to write it on a list, all the terms that shouldn't have triggered your ad, because it's obvious the person who searched for that, they didn't read the ad. Like I told you, a lot of people don't read the ad, and they should have never seen it in the first place, so that only people that are qualified will start to see our ad. Therefore, we won't have to have these accidental clicks in the future. And going back to the example before I gave you about the local companies, if they type in local dance clothing, let's just say, okay? And you know you're not local. Well, you see that search term local dance clothing in your list, and you're working on your negative keywords there, just to let you know how I do it, and you therefore should do it, conversely. That local dance clothing should be a negative keyword, but I also put local dance and then also local, right? And so I write all the branch ones. When I find one, I don't just stick with that one at verbatim or exactly. I write all the ones that are close to it right away. Why? Because it's hard to actually get, because there's thousands and thousands and thousands of ways that people are going to search for what you do. Okay? Sometimes it'll be hundreds, but you get. And so and the negative keywords, they don't work as precisely as you think they do. If you put in a negative keyword, sometimes it doesn't actually block anybody who, if it was a 3-word phrase, if they use 2 words, it won't. You would think it would block it if you put it into a phrase match. It doesn't like you think it does. So therefore, you should it'll just get you a little bit further ahead if you come up with some different variants you can think of, okay? Local dance clothing, local dance clothing, local dance schmucks. I don't know what the heck, what they call the dance clothing, but you get the idea. You could go one step further and actually go and type in synonyms for those different words to build out a really good negative keyword list file. Once you have that, that's going to be able to weed out most of the crap, because even if you spent a few $1,000s on ads already from what you did before with the dynamic search ads, 80-90% of the potential crap that was coming through will be blocked with this new campaign you're going to set up. So with that, you actually are going to set up a new campaign. You're going to going into the last step, you're going to create a new campaign. This campaign is going to do manual bidding. I would do enhanced CPC. You're going to set up one keyword that you found, per ad group, so that you're going to come up with a formula so that every ad you're going to, or just to keep it simple, you're going to write a static unique ad for every keyword you're going to bid on. So if you have 300 keywords, you need 300 ads. Yes, that takes a lot of time, but if you want really good results that work immediately, this is how you do it. Write an ad that's customized for it, and then you handpick the perfect page on your site that's available to send the person to, so that you can control, not only make sure that they have to be a serious buyer to even see your ad now, but they see the ad and they know exactly what you offer, versus it being kind of tossed up in the air for that person to realize what you offer. You know, you're going to tell them as specifically as possible so they're as confused as least as possible, and then you're not going to take them to a page that's close to what they want, but is exactly what they want, because that'll help increase the conversion rates and the likelihood the whole campaign will work. That whole strategy, by the way, also gets your cost per click down, because Google measures how well you do in terms of helping the user, in terms of the appeal of the ad and the appeal of the landing page you take the person to how much you're paying. And so that can actually cut half of the cost per click if you did it my way versus the other way, which is the reason why I always do it on my campaigns. But you'll run every keyword. Just to get started, I would recommend just an exact match. Again, let's walk before we run, let's get it to work, and then later on we can add in to the same ad group a phrase match. If we want to expand, it would be the second thing I would go ahead and do there. But so you apply all your negative keywords to your campaign. You're going to run just the keywords that converted. You're going to weed out all the terms that shouldn't have triggered your ads in the first place, and you're going to run each keyword in an exact match so that Google won't find you, people that they think is similar to people that you want to target, but only pretty much the people you want to target at that point. You've pinned everything down, so you're forcing Google to get real efficient real fast. Once you've done that, you should be able to probably make money with what you did already. If you went through and you did it properly, to do this properly, it might take you 10, 20 hours, 30 hours to set it up, but hey, do you want the results? Do you not? That's pretty much how I set up my campaigns by default. That's how you dig yourself out of this hole. So anyway, now you understand about dynamic search ads, especially with Target CPA, what's the deal with those, can work for some people. Eventually, you may have some success with it, but you can decrease the amount of money it takes and time generally if you go ahead and do things with a manual campaign and you put more footwork in for yourself right away, which I recommend you do if you don't have piles of cash to burn to eventually get it working, or if you're not getting any progress, so how to regroup and start again. If you have any, first of all, I have a lot of other videos on this channel about other PPC money-making strategies. If you haven't seen any of my other videos, you should check those out. I have a blog at guaranteeppc.com/blog, which has step-by-step instructions on how to build campaigns like the ones I talked about here. If you're curious about seeing information along those lines, I have it there, the ones that I use for our clients to guarantee the results. Other than that, if you have any questions or comments about dynamic search ads, Target CPA, any of this stuff, anything that you thought I should cover and didn't, leave a comment down below. I get back to every single person who leaves me a comment on this channel within a day or two. Apart from that, I hope this really puts into frame of reference why your dynamic search ads may not be working, what you can do to work around it, and maybe even avoid a little bit of pain for yourself before you go ahead and jump in. You were researching the topic now in general.